Hello, gazers. It's Dr. Lee here.
And I'm Dave from The Problematic Gaze.
Before you listen to this podcast, we just wanted to let you know about our socials. We are at Podcast Gaze on Instagram and at Problematic Gaze on TikTok.
Give us a follow where you'll find content relating to our chosen topic contained in this podcast.
And don't forget to follow us and do leave us a review. They really help to spread the word of The Problematic Gaze.
And please email us at theproblematicgaze@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on the podcast or you want to suggest future topics.
In the meantime, we hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to The Problematic Gaze with me, Dr. Lee Arnott.
And me, Dave Moor.
Each episode will take a piece of pop culture from the last 60 years and examine it through the problematic lens to see, could you get away with that today? And if not, why not?
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll look at the news events of the day. We'll look at what was on the TV landscape, and we'll also have a look at the pop charts, just to put our chosen topic into context. So, cheers, Lee.
Cheers. Oh, on the sherry, are we? Somebody hasn't got work to go to later. I knew. What did I say at the end of the last episode? That bottle will be open, that bottle will be drunk, and there'll be another one. How many is this today?
Just one, and I haven't even taken a sip yet. This is for visual.
Just the one. Just the one. I've not had a sip of anything yet.
It's for medicinal purposes.
Oh, yes. You got a snotty nose. Cheers. I've got coffee. Are you well?
I'm well. I didn't sleep very well last night, which is a very boring opener to an episode.
Yeah, it is.
But I think I've got a little bit of a virus or something. Yeah, it really is.
Okay.
People don't need to know that. Hence why I'm just drinking through the tiredness at the moment. So, what we call in the biz banking episodes, because Dr. Lee has got to, he wants to.
No.
He is going up north for 10 days, up to Morpeth. Aren't you back up north?
Yeah, I am.
To see the folks. Pre-Christmas amble.
Yeah, and it's my aunt's 60th birthday party, and she's having a fancy dress party in the Working Men's Club, so it'll be 10 drinks for £5. Come on.
That's always the good thing about going back up north, isn't it? From from the big smoke, is you can actually buy a round of drinks and it's not going to cripple you financially.
Yeah, we don't need a mortgage for it. Yeah, it's good. It's great. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm packing me thermals because it is particularly noticeably colder up there and it gets a bit chilly.
That northeast wind on the northeast coast, I know it well from Scarborough.
Well, we call it a lazy wind because it doesn't go around you, it goes straight through you.
Anyway, what I need to know is, how was your party? You know, we discussed last week about tea before 10.
Oh,
either the drink of tea or crystal meth tea before 10. Yeah. Which one was it?
Yeah. It was neither of those, actually, but it was great fun. It was a great laugh, although slightly dampened by the nightmare journey home care of London Underground, which failed miserably. So it was great fun. Saw some people I've not seen in years. I was quite Christmassy, actually, for about 10 minutes. What do you think about that?
Oh, well done.
Baby steps.
So you're not wearing a Christmas jumper yet?
No, why would I? You're not wearing a Christmas jumper either.
I know, but I've got a glass of Christmas sherry in my hand. Look, I'm showing willing.
Just because you put the word Christmas in front of it doesn't make it Christmas. It doesn't make you allowed to do it just because it's Christmas. Oh, I've got some Christmas cocaine here. That's why I'm just going to have a little bit here, you know. Oh, it's for the Christmas. I see.
It is for Christmas. Anyway, I've just been to the opticians talking about getting old, etc., and your body getting knackered. I've been there. I've got the air squirted into my eyes. I've got my clicker. Can you see this light? Can you see that light? Etc. My eyes are deteriorating slightly. The word varifocals was mentioned. I mean, come on.
Welcome to my world, love. They're bloody great once you get used to them. They're fantastic. You feel like you've got your Superman with your eyes. Never mind when you wibbled on about your broadband getting upgraded. This is going to make you feel like the Bionic Man, love, or the Bionic Woman, whichever you prefer. You know, or your Jamie Summers or your Steve Austin. You can decide.
Well, I mean, Lee Majors did funny things to me when I was a child. No, that's wrong. Don't say that.
Yeah. Was he in a wood in a hood?
Okay, we're going to get cancelled if we're not careful.
Keep that in. Keep that in. That was funny. So, moving to the business of the day, because it's December, so it is the festive period, despite my reticence, but I hope you are all enjoying getting Christmassy and blah, blah, blah. So our special Christmassy kind of themed month continues with what are we looking at today, Dave?
Well, Lee, as per your suggestion, I'm not quite sure what we actually looked at. I'm still trying to process it, to be honest.
It's bonkers, isn't it? I came across it a couple of weeks ago. Once you YouTube, I urge you, preferably if you've had a little couple of drinks, maybe, just to watch it. It's Aladdin. We'll put the link in the show notes. So Children's BBC used to do a panto every year, and all the stars of Children's BBC at the time would be involved in this panto. It would go out over the festive period. And this is their version of a mashup between Aladdin and Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. And it is filled with the faces, and the names are, if you're of a certain generation. I actually got quite emotional watching it towards the end. It could be because I was quite tired. I'd just been bludgeoned for an hour. But the big show number at the end, I was a bit like, oh my God, it just... And between that and Band-Aid episode we did last week, I've really kind of been bringing back 1984 in lots of ways that I didn't anticipate when we started recording these podcasts. I guess it's the time of the year. You feel more nostalgic at Christmas, don't you? And nostalgia can be a double-edged sword because it can be really nice, but at the same time you can think, oh, all the things have gone. That's who's gone, what's been lost, you know. So yeah, I've been feeling quite moved by the last two episodes we've done. So, but yeah, this is a bonkers piece of an hour with, we'll discuss some of the problematic elements of it, but it's basically everything you would expect from a British panto. And if you don't know what a panto is, for our international listeners, it is a bizarre form of theatre.
Panto is a kind of Christmas, New Year tradition in the UK. Like I say, it doesn't really translate across the world. Not many of the areas of the world have it. But basically what it is, it takes a fairy tale or a fable. So, for example, Aladdin or Babes in the Wood or Robin Hood, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, that kind of storytelling. Various elements that make up a Christmas panto, aren't there? Namely, you know, there's more than likely a principal boy, which is kind of the main character, or one of the, you know, the secondary characters. And the principal boy is traditionally played by a woman or a girl. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of like elements of cross-dressing in it, and namely panto dames as well, which are women characters played by men, essentially being dragged up. There are songs in it, there are cultural modern references, and a lot of the time there are kind of it's aimed at children, but then there are adult jokes laced in between that only the adults would get as well. So there's kind of a show for all ages. There are secret identities. Often people get dressed up as others. There's a lot of audience interaction, you know, things like, he's behind you, and, oh, no, he isn't. Oh, yes, he is. So there's a lot of audience participation there as well. And more often than not, a pantomime horse, which is two people dressed up in a horse costume. So it's very, very fun. It's very interactive, and it is a British tradition, isn't it? That still goes on to this day. I mean, I don't think there's any sign of it waning.
A lot of theatres rely on their panto every Christmas to keep them afloat for the rest of the year because they bring in big bucks. They're hugely popular still. So, but they are impenetrable if you're not from the UK. I've been in panto. Have you ever done a panto?
I have, actually, strangely enough, because we're talking about Aladdin, and, you know, this is unusual because it's a televised version of a theatrical panto. But I actually was in Aladdin, and I played the Emperor in Aladdin.
Really?
Yes, many moons ago when I was in training. Yeah, it was great. Loved it. I love the panto.
Yeah. I was in the Morpeth Panto Society, and we did a production of Robinson Crusoe, and I was captain. I can't remember the character's name, and had a nosebleed 10 seconds before I was due to go on stage, and had to improvise, darling, draw on my strengths as a performer, and just worked the crowd with a increasingly bloody handkerchief, which was quite disgusting.
/ being overly dramatic.
With the boring blood of nose. Yes, hooray to panto. Now, if you've listened to some of our other episodes from 1984, we've already covered some domestic news incidents. So now we're going to go across to our international news desk. I'll do exactly the same, should I?
I'm shuffling papers.
Shuffling. Very good.
Okay.
Very good shuffling.
Thank you very much. On the 24th of January 1984, a man called Steve Jobs launches the Macintosh personal computer in the United States. Wonder what happened to that.
Never heard of them. Weird, isn't it? It's like Betamax, I guess. They just come and they just go. You know, maybe it'll be a footnote in history, love. And this, what was it called? Apple
Sure. Yeah, Sank Without a Trace, obviously.
In June, you get a little snapshot of the satanic panic which is taking place in America, which is something we don't really get in the UK, which is a really interesting movement when everybody's panicking about Satan worshipping and lyrics being put in Black Sabbath records that you can play backwards and summon up the devil. All this, it's crazy in America. And anyway, a 17-year-old Ricky Casso murders Gary Lawless in Newark, which conflates the heavy metal music with Satanism, which was the big thing at the time. But yeah, America's going nuts for Satanism at this point.
I know. Isn't it weird how there's these moral panics just kind of spring up from nowhere? I would suggest that this murder had more to do with mental illness than Satan.
Yeah, it wasn't Satan. Never Satan, for God's sake.
No. On July the 25th, a Salyut 7 cosmonaut, Svetlana Savitskaya, I hope I said that right, Svetlana Savitskaya becomes the first woman to perform a spacewalk.
Well, there you go. I don't know who the men were, do you?
Doesn't matter. It's all about Svetlana in this instance.
Svetlana's moment. In October, I remember the assassination of Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, assassinated by 2 of her security guards. And then there's all kinds of trouble. It didn't really register with me at the time. I remember it happening. I remember it being on the news, but I was too young to understand what it was about.
Yeah. Also, what I was too young to understand at this point is Ronald Reagan defeats Democratic former Vice President Walter F. Mondale, never heard of him, with 59% of the popular vote, the highest since Richard Nixon's 61% popular vote victory in 1972. So Ronald, this is Ronald Reagan midway, isn't it? It's his second term. Has he been shot by then? Yes, he's been shot by then, hasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, and obviously him and Thatcher are having a love-in all the time. And this is the year when the Brighton bombing on the Tory party conference takes place, and obviously wandered as one of her staunchest allies, and you get a lot of crackdown on Irish movements in America at this point afterwards as well. For Maggie, on a complete side swerve, crack cocaine, a smokable form of the drug cocaine, is first introduced in Los Angeles and soon spreads across the United States in what becomes known as the crack epidemic, and then hits the rest of the world as well. So Breaking Bad begins right there this year.
Crack is whack. Crack is whack.
Crack is whack. Crack
Just
is
ask Whitney.
Just ask Whitney, love. She knew.
Bless her. So what we thought we'd do is look at New Year's Day 1984, which is when this panto was broadcast, and look at what was on BBC One and what you could expect from TV on New Year's Day in 1984.
Well, Happy New Year, first of all, and to welcome the new year on BBC One at 9:15, we can all go to church with Sunday worship. I suspect the TV wasn't on in our house that morning.
No, I mean, that was always on in the background. You're just thinking, oh, hurry up and finish, please, get some good stuff on.
Such as
at 10 o'clock, Asian Magazine. Yes, that's on for half an hour. And then we've got, do you remember this? See Here.
Yeah.
For people who are deaf or hard of hearing.
Well, those were the days when you wouldn't get subtitles and stuff on most things, would you? You just have to suck it up and put up with it. People with disabilities back in those days. It's
yeah, and then you'd get half an hour, wouldn't you, on a Sunday morning?
Yeah. And then at 10:55, nobody rushed the TV, everybody. It's the Edinburgh military tattoo of 1983. Highlights from the esplanade of Edinburgh Castle. I mean, would you?
No, I mean, I quite enjoyed them when they were on, because my grandma really loved them. So she would sit down and watch them. So I'd sit down and watch them with her. Wow. And she actually, in her later years, managed to get to see one in real life. My dad took her up there and they sat and watched the military tattoo together, which she absolutely adored, which is lovely. And then at 12:05, from Brooklyn to Blenheim, Barry Manilow reflects with Danny McLeod on a career that has taken him from the tenement blocks of New York to the Duke of Marlborough's estate in Oxfordshire.
Wow.
Like a bit of Bazza.
I like a bit of Bazza. I don't know if I'd watch a special on him. We've got a little cartoon at 10 to 1. Then at 1 o'clock, we've got a special from Blackpool Tower with Ken Dodd, which is an entertainment documentary, apparently.
1:45, we've got some news headlines. And then at 1:50, for 5 minutes. Yeah. And then at 1:50, for 2 hours on New Year's Day, we've got a film called The Yellow Rolls Royce, which sounds absolutely dull as anything. But actually, got some good people in it. It's got Jean Moreau in it as the Marchioness of Frinton. Also Shirley MacLaine, George C. Scott, Alain Delon. Well, actually, I'll take it back. Ingrid Bergman, Omar Sharif.
Bergman.
My goodness.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the description does sound deadly dull, though. Gerda Millett, a widowed American millionaire who takes the car through war-torn Europe. I mean, it sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it?
Dear.
Now, more of a barrel of dance at 10 to 4 with the Hot Shoe Show. I used to love the Hot Shoe Show. It was a show for like half an hour where lots of new dancers like Wayne Sleep and friend of the pod, Bonnie Langford, and other dancers of the day would do fabulous routines. I used to think it was great.
Oh, here we go. 1640 is Aladdin and the 40 Thieves, a pantomime featuring the stars of BBC children's programmes in 1983. In a faraway Peking, a magic lamp is concealed in a robber's cave. Only a pure and untainted youth can retrieve the magic lamp. His name is Aladdin. So there we go. That's what we're going to be deep diving into in a few minutes.
Speaking of deep diving, we've got Richard Chamberlain chatting about the Thornbirds at 25 to 6, which looks like a puff piece. It's basically him talking to somebody from the BBC about the Thornbirds, which is going to start being broadcast the week after on BBC One. Now, I remember the Thornbirds, and I remember being deeply in love with Richard Chamberlain. Thornbirds was fantastic.
That one passed me by. In brackets, it does say Richard Chamberlain stars in The Slipper and the Rose on Wednesday at 6:40 p.m. I loved The Slipper and the Rose. It was the story of Cinderella. It was great. I can't remember who played Cinderella in it.
Gemma Craven.
Gemma Craven.
Yeah. At the same time, the Thornbirds is on BBC, ITV showing The Jewel in the Crown, which is the first big, prestigious historical drama ITV's really attempted. And of course, that goes on to win all the BAFTAs, and there are lots of hypes at the BBC going, why were we showing the Thornbirds? And they've got this massive, prestigious show on ITV. Need to say, we watched the Thornbirds. We were a Thornbirds house, our house.
This all kind of passed me by. I don't know what I was doing. It's probably out playing on my BMX at this point. 1805, The Holiday Programme with Cliff Mitchell-Moore, John Carter and Anne Gregg. 1840, Songs of Praise. Now, okay, New Year's Day back then, they just went back to normal programming New Year's Day. It was like, back to the dourness.
Britain is still really quite a Christian country. Church attendance is still quite high, relatively speaking. People will still say they have a faith, as opposed to today where more people will say they don't have a faith. So it kind of makes sense, really. It's just odd for us that it's got such a prominent place, hasn't it? Because we have grown more secular as a nation. So it does look a bit weird. At 7:15, we've got the Two Ronnies. Oh, Patrick Troughton's in it. They've gone for a New Year special. And then another episode, The Two Ronnies. Wow, they've got a double bill, The Two Ronnies on New Year's Day.
Okay, stand by your beds, everyone, because at 8:05, the second film of the day, Fame.
Yeah, now we're talking. Gosh. It's 1984, the year Fame hits BBC Telly, the kids from Fame, because I was obsessed with it. The only reason I started to play the cello was because I could be like Julie. That's all. Only reason, yeah.
So after Fame, it all falls off a cliff, basically. It's all very dull, and the day ends with golf.
Happy New Year from BBC.
Happy New Year, everybody. Okay, pop pickers, it's the official singles chart from the 1st of January 1984. That was my Alan Fluff Freeman for our international listeners.
It's very good. And starting at number 40, well, we've got a new entry at number 39, All Night Long, All Night, brackets, by Lionel Richie. That's a great song.
Yeah, classic. Number 37, Superman by Black Lace. Row
Spray. Oh, yeah. Could be Ski, it could be Kiss, it could be Take a Walk. You know, I bought that single.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. And you wore all the moves, obviously.
Now, do you remember in 1984, everyone walking around wearing white T-shirts with the word Relax emblazoned all the way across it? Well, that was because number 35, Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yes, and also soon to be banned by the BBC, which ensures it goes to number 1 for a number of weeks, late January 1984.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
Number 30, Karma Chameleon by Culture Club. That peaked at number 1 too.
Say, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, their duets at number 29. Do you remember number 24, Calling Your Name, Marilyn? Marilyn was a friend of Boy George and another, to use the term of the time, gender bender. And Marilyn based himself on Marilyn Monroe. And that song, I loved it. I bought that. I think I must have got a record token for Christmas. And that's when I probably bought Superman. And I have bought Agadoo as well. I'm not proud. And Calling Your Name by Marilyn. Number 22, darling.
Oh, prepare yourself. Number 22. Oh, yeah. Friend of the podcast, Shakin' Stevens is back with Cry Just a Little Bit.
I don't know what that is, but it's good to see him, isn't it?
It always feels like a little warm security blanket, doesn't it? That, you know, when you see Shaky on the charts.
Yes, it does. Obviously, riding the Minder crest of the wave at number 21 is What Are We Gonna Get Her Indoors, which is a Christmas novelty song by Dennis Waterman and George Cole from TV's Minder.
That wasn't very good, was it, really?
No, it wasn't.
Merry Christmas, Everybody by Slade, number 20, peaks at number 1. That must be a reissue, surely. That must be gone out in the 70s, surely, yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
It's a reissue.
Oh, number 18, another friend of the podcast, Roland Rat Superstar with Rat Rapping. Good old Roland.
Yeah. Number 16, in my opinion, the best Christmas song ever, 2,000 Miles by the Pretenders, is a song that I will play every Christmas. One of the very few I can count on one hand.
14, Uptown Girl, Billy Joel, has peaked at number 1.
Many a school disco.
Number 12, Let's Stay Together, Tina Turner.
Number 11, Thriller, Michael Jackson. Two great ones there, aren't they?
What Is Love, Howard Jones at number 10. Pipes of Peace, Paul McCartney, number 9. Oh, some good ones on this chart.
There are some good ones coming up. I've got Hold Me Now, the Thompson Twins. And then at number 7, Islands in the Stream by Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. I mean, that's a corker, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of my karaoke go-tos, that one. Number 6, Tell Her About It, Billy Joel. So Billy Joel is riding high. He's got 2 songs in the top 20.
Margarita Time, Status Quo, number 5. I don't know that song at all.
Don't diss the quo. Number 4, Victims, Culture Club.
Love of the Common People by Paul Young.
Yeah, that's a good one. Number 2, My Oh My by Slade. Don't know that one, unfortunately.
No. And number 1, Only You, the Flying Pickets, that a cappella song that was the cover of Yazoo's. I remember that, but I thought it was a bit boring. I was 10. I thought it was like a bit boring.
Yeah, it's just by a bunch of old men just stood around going, bomb, 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 bomb.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was no frog chorus, was it?
Okay, Aladdin and the 40 Thieves, the Panto, broadcast to the 1st of January 1984 on BBC One. Lee, why don't you give us a quick rundown about what happens in this?
Well, it's a mashup of Aladdin and Ali Baba with more stars that you can shake a stick at. In Egypt, the evil king Abanazar is told by his genie, the genie of the ring, about a cave in China which contains a lamp which will make him rich beyond his dreams. Meanwhile, in Peking, now Beijing, Aladdin is in love with the princess, but her parents, the emperor and empress, forbid the marriage until Aladdin can prove himself. Meanwhile, there are also 40 thieves who are plotting to overthrow the emperor. What follows is all you'd expect and want from your classic panto: cross-dressing, a panto horse, thigh-slapping, magic genies, musical numbers, and very, very questionable racial stereotyping. Will they all live happily ever after? Spoiler alert, yes. Yes, they do. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, that's all we need to know. Okay, so the script was written by John Morley. The designer was Marjorie Pratt, and it was directed by Jeremy Swan. Now, I'm going to give a rundown of the stars of this panto, and you, Lee, why don't you tell me what they were famous for at the time? See how many of these names our gazers can recognise. Okay, so Edward Brayshaw.
Mr. Meeker from Rent Ghost.
Floella Benjamin.
Needs no introduction.
Sarah Greene.
Needs no introduction.
Terry Nutkins.
Possibly needs an introduction, but he was the guy from the really wild show Animal Magic at this point. He was the guy who famously had his finger bitten off by a pet otter.
Johnny Morris.
Animal Magic legend.
Jan Francis.
Well, so at this point, the star of Just Good Friends. So she's a bit of a, not a coup, but she wasn't in Children's Tale at this point. So I guess they have to have a straight actress to play the leading lady role.
Sue Nichols.
Miss Popoff from Rent Ghost.
And later Audrey from Coronation Street.
Of course.
Brian Cant.
Play School, and many, many other things. And a couple of episodes of Doctor Who in 1968.
And Emery.
She was Mrs. Meeker from Rent Ghost.
Johnny Ball.
Needs no introduction. Father of Zoe.
Todd Carty.
Well, at this point, he was riding high in Tucker's Luck, which was a spin-off from Grange Hill. Of course, he played Tucker, and who I was obsessed with.
Molly Weir.
She is the witch from Rent a Ghost. And also, we completely failed to mention that she's actually in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. She's one of those two weird domestic science teachers. That's the witch from Rent a Ghost. One of our Insta fans pointed that out. Yeah.
Friend of the
Friend of
podcast.
the podcast.
Kenneth Connor.
I mean, stalwart of Carry On films. Google him.
Janet Ellis.
Blue Peter and Doctor Who in 1980.
Christopher Biggins.
Needs no introduction, surely to God. Famous for I, Claudius.
John Craven.
Newsround presenter, the face of children's news for many, many years. Used to get, at the height of his fame, got more fan mail letters than Duran Duran at the BBC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clive Dunn.
Grandad, we love you. And obviously a stalwart of British comedy for many, many years.
Kenneth Williams.
Needs no introduction.
Keith Chegwin.
Cheggers might need a bit of an introduction. Wolverhampton boy, was a face on children's telly at the time, married to Maggie Philbin from Tomorrow's World.
And then I think I might just rattle off these last few, see if anybody does recognise them.
Few.
Okay, so Peter Duncan,
Blue Peter.
Mark Curry, Mike Reed, Jeffrey Russell.
There's a load of names that you won't know who they are, but as soon as you see them, you'll be like, oh my God. But you won't be able to remember what they're from, which is what happened to me for some of those guys in that scene with the princess.
Yes.
I knew them, but
yeah,
I couldn't.
I mean, the likes of Andrew Seacombe, Barry Tuck, Brian Truman, Gary Wilmot, you know. So lots and lots of faces from children's BBC and the wider world of television at the time.
And it was still exciting to see lots of famous people doing something together, wasn't it? Because it didn't happen very often. Band Aid hadn't happened yet. That's going to come in December this year. And so things like the Royal Variety performance was huge on the telly because it was rare to get so many different celebs in one room. So I remember being genuinely thrilled by this pantomime every year because it was a chance to see the people from shows in doing things they would never normally do in that show. So, but there's a few elements, aren't there? Which are...
There are. I mean, first of all, can I just start by saying I thought the design was great. It really evoked that era. It really evoked kind of the pantomime sets. You know, the designer did a great job, Marjorie Pratt.
I'm pretty sure the big doors with the circular thing on one from a 1980 Doctor Who where they must have been in storage. I'm fairly certain they were. But yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It is great, and I thought it was well directed. The costumes were great as well, if not questionable, some of them. But yes, okay. Why don't you kick us off?
I mean, it must be said that this being Aladdin is filled with stereotypes of Asian culture, basically, is the kind way to put it. There's a lot of people doing cod Asian accents. There are a lot of characters called things like ping pong or chop suey. It would definitely not get made today. It is so culturally insensitive. It was at one point, John Craven, who was the very earnest and serious face and who makes news accessible to children. There's a little running gag when he is a newsreader within the drama. I say drama, within the panto. And he's basically reading the news in a fake Chinese accent. And we all know what it sounds like, so we don't need to do it now. But it was kind of eye-popping. Well, what did you think when he started doing that?
Oh my goodness. I thought, okay, so all the way through there are questionable accents. And I thought actually that the blending of Arabic culture and Chinese culture into one kind of homogenized culture all the way through this, obviously questionable. You know, but when it got to John Craven, I thought, okay, the wheels have spectacularly come off now because obviously you can imagine the director going, okay, so John, what we want to do is to do like, you know, an accentuated Chinese accent as you're kind of narrating the story. I mean, he was very good at what he was doing, but it was just hideously inappropriate. And just to watch it through a modern lens. It was shocking.
And I think you're being too kind. I don't think somebody was there going, okay, John, what would you like to do? I think it would just be like, here, John, give us a funny Chinese accent, would you? And I think that's the level of production discussion on that went to. Because I think it was all very prevalent, that kind of accents and doing accents like that at the time. Which speaks of the time this was made, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. It was very much of its time, and we're not saying it was wrong or right. Well, through modern eyes, it was very, very wrong.
Yeah.
But that was just kind of the general idea of what you know panto should be. You know, set in China. You know, you give people Chinese accents, or you know, give Arabic characters Arabic accents, and then there was some in between that was a mixture of kind of French, German, meant to be Chinese, but people just haven't quite got the grasp of it. So it was just left, right, and centre all over the place, wasn't it?
And I love what you said about the fact that it just mixed all these different cultures together, because there's one bit where we're supposedly in Peking. I mean, it's not Beijing, isn't Beijing at this point. And they say, oh my God, here's the princess coming on an elephant. And then they cut to some stock footage of a clearly Indian festival. It's so unrelated, just plonked in the middle of it. And then back to the studio for the entrance of the princess.
Yeah.
It's so wrong. It's like people just have to watch it with a drink because you can't watch this sober analytically. It's really wrong.
No. And then Alibaba and the 40 Thieves just casually rock up in deepest, darkest China.
Yeah. Well, it's all the same, innit?
It's all the same, innit? Yeah, it was very much that kind of, this is how we see just foreign, just one big melting pot of cultures, etc.
And I was thinking about this because it did strike me, and what we were talking about in the Band-Aid episode as well, you know, the conflation of like one country with the whole continent of Africa. The same thing happens with this. And I wondered if it was partly because the world genuinely feels bigger at that point. We haven't got the internet. We haven't got news has trickled through. It's fast, but, you know, it still trickles through. You don't get much of it. So it was still possible to have the idea of the rest of the world as some kind of, the Far East could still be some kind of mythical place, you know, until we knew better and became more exposed, probably through the internet. And also we haven't got the rise of India and China here, so you can't use those stereotypes anymore, because clearly here are two very vibrant nations who are becoming massive powers. But it just felt like we were a country in isolation, like probably a lot of countries were, you know, because there isn't the interconnectivity that there is these days. So it was possible for, I did find the whole thing felt a little bit like a bit of an imperial hangover as well. You know, the kind of attitudes that here we are, we're just taking the piss out of foreign people as per, because that's what we can do. We're still a bit lingering, but you know, it's all unconscious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all unconscious, and I don't think there was a general consensus of let's take the piss out of them at all. It was just, it felt like, you know, innocent in that respect. No, look at it through a modern lens, it's hideously racist, but through that, and I'm not trying to justify anything in any sense, but like you say, you're only exposed to, your kind of only education is through books or through what you see on the TV at the time, which is very limited channel wise as well, you know, so you wouldn't necessarily know, you know, what it's like in China or how people behave or what the social structures are, or in the Arab world as well. You know, you get very limited resources. But okay, let's talk about, I thought what was really interesting was when the Chinese people were kind of worshipping the emperor, etc., they were all saying salam, salam, which is obviously an Arabic word. So there was, even that was, okay, we need to say something now. What can we say in a foreign language that's kind of appropriate? So just, salam's a foreign word. Why don't we just say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was.
Absolutely. But, and what a godsend within this is Floella Benjamin, because she is unashamedly from the Caribbean. At one point, she has Sarah Greene doing a Caribbean accent, which is something else to behold.
I saw that. I mean, obviously, Sarah Greene was just repeating what Floella Benjamin had said.
Yes.
And I don't know if it was the director or Floella just said to her, this is how you say it. So we've got Sarah Greene speaking in Patois, haven't we? Is that the right word?
Yes.
Patois?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, but what a legend, you know, and just the only woman of colour in the whole thing in a pantomime, which is all about foreign people. And I remember just watching her on the TV as a kid and just being mesmerised for her, because you saw so few people of colour on TV, and especially on kids' TV.
I thought what was really great about her as well, I can't remember the exact wording at the beginning, when she first appeared and she was like on Abanazar's hand, you know, like a miniaturised version of her, and he said something like, oh, this is black magic, and she kind of turned around to him and went, cheek. She kind of remonstrated him, which I thought, I wonder if Floella had said, you know, I need to say something back to him now. So even then, Floella was kind of like going, oh, that's a bit inappropriate. So I really liked that about her, but she was great, and what a brilliant actor as well.
Yeah, she really is. I mean,
she kind of shone through as one of the greats on this one.
All those play school were all classically trained, you know, they're all actors and just fell into doing play school. I met Floella years ago. She was lovely. She was so nice, but she wasn't very well at the time. She was sitting in this room, so she couldn't stand up to greet the fans. And I felt like I was going to see, it was like going to see a cross between Father Christmas and the Queen. See, there was a big queue. And eventually I saw Floella in the distance, and there she was. This was in the days before I'd elevated to interviewing and stuff and chaperoning. But she was really sweet. ever so sweet. I loved her.
Now, I wanted to talk about, the concept of the principal boy, etc. Sarah Greene plays Aladdin, who is a male. She's a female, so she's playing a male part. I mean, Sarah Greene was great in this role, wasn't she? Obviously, Sarah Greene playing Aladdin as a man falls in love with a woman. So essentially, you've got two women holding hands and cuddling and falling in love with each other and stuff, which, is just a common feature of a panto, isn't it? But to people who don't know what the concept of panto is, looks quite sapphic.
Yeah, well, it is. It's weird, but it goes back to the 17th century. Pantos are like a real hodgepodge of all these different theatre trends and stuff over the past 400 years. And this goes back to breeches roles when in the 17th century, after women had been banned from the stage, they were allowed back on the stage, and certain actresses would become famous for wearing very short shorts. And they became superstars, if you like. They were the first kind of celebrities of their day. And breeches roles were incorporated and were hugely popular, and women became famous for dressing. So the principal boy becomes a thing in about the 18th century, is a continuation from on these breeches roles from the 17th century. So there's loads of super interesting stuff in panto.
Let's talk, while we're at it then, about the pantomime dame.
Well, panto dame was, God, what's his name? He's the father of clown, Joseph Grimaldi. In the 18th century, he kind of creates, when the modern panto as we know it today is being formed, he comes up with the character of the dame. He's basically the father of modern clowning, and they have every year they have a special day at the church, the Actors' Church in Covent Garden, where all the clowns registered go and do a special service for this guy. And he was the first one. Panto has a long route back to the Bacchanalian, the Roman festival of Bacchus, over the Christmas and New Year period, which was pre-Christianity, which is when the world turns upside down. Men dress as women, women dress as men, masters and servants switch roles, this kind of stuff. So there's a long history of that tradition, but Grimaldi in the 18th century is the one who nails it and creates the modern panto dame that we have today. I mean, the hobby horse, the panto horse, that goes back to pagan times when it was the god Hobbick, or Hobby, I think, was an ancient pagan god that was worshipped. He was a horse-like, and he becomes a part of the pagan festive period. It is often in those weird pictures you used to get at 19th century Christmas festival. People dress weirdly. There'd be like a horse, or the hobby horse we have today that kids play on goes back to that Roman god. So it's all kinds of weird shit in panto. What did you think about Terry Nutkins, bless him?
Okay, there were a few performances here that were questionable. I felt Terry Nutkins was one of them, doing a valiant job. He's not necessarily a trained actor. No. He's more of a TV presenter. Weak would be one word to describe him. And surprisingly, Todd Carty, who played Ali Baba, seemed to be acting in a different thing to everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, there were some questionable performances here, I have to say.
Right. If as a former director, if you'd had to work with Terry Nutkins, what kind of advice would you give him to try and elicit a performance from him? I
think there are some people that, as a director, in a very short space of time, you're not going to turn them into Laurence Olivier. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, this is what we've got. This is what we've got to work with. I don't think I would do huge amounts to him. I think with Todd Carty, you would say, well, what you would want to say secretly is, could you not see the environment you're working in? This is elevated performance. He's downplaying it as though it's in some sort of Chekhov play. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is what panto is. It's heightened reality. Put a bit of oomph into your performance. I mean, no actor likes to be told, put a bit of oomph into your performance. But for God's sake, put a bit of oomph into your performance. Come on.
Maybe he was playing Tucker. Maybe that was the thing. Because Tucker was cool, wasn't he? Maybe he was told to play it like Tucker. Because he's a good actor. He was a child actor. He must have done panto.
Floella knew the tone. Yeah. Sarah Greene knew the tone. Yeah. Jan Francis knew the tone. Sue Nichols did.
Yeah.
I thought another kind of weak performance was Johnny Morris as the Dame. I don't think he kind of got into the...
No.
Again, a presenter rather than a... But then he was so good at doing the animal voices. You know what I mean? And just he felt a little bit flat as well. But I thought Johnny Ball was great as Mr. Wu, as we're allowed to say, doing his George Formby impression. Yeah, let's talk about the music. Because, again, in panto, there is a tendency just to crowbar a song into proceedings. Most notably, on this one, This Old House by Shaky was just literally introed by them saying, Oh, look at our old house. This old house. Da, 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 da.
I love
Which is
that.
great. I mean, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. Do you know what I
No.
mean? We all know why we're here. We all know what the score is. But that was quite funny.
Exactly. The thing, but going back to the idea, but the fact he's a bit sapphic, seeing the two girls holding hands and stuff. But the thing is, everyone in a panto, apart from the dame, is asexual. The dame is the only one, and obviously not in this panto because it was really for kids. But the dame is the only one who's allowed to make double entendre, is allowed to flirt with male characters. It's basically a drag queen, isn't it? But yeah. I can't remember.
Really
I can't remember what the other songs were. But I did notice that just jarring. We'll put a bit of shaky in here.
Yeah. Which is great because I mean, shaky is relevant across all eras,
all time,
along all time spans.
Absolutely,
he's immortal.
He's immortal. And about 10 minutes towards the end, you get a little story from Kenneth Williams, which was lovely.
I'm sorry, I don't think it was lovely. I switched off at that point.
Did you?
But Kenneth Williams goes on and on. I mean, I loved it, and I think at the time the producer, the director was like, okay, we've got Kenneth Williams just this one scene. He's obviously just come in for one scene because he's isolated, isn't he, on his own?
Yeah.
And we've gone, oh, Kenny darling, can you give us a nice story? Can you elaborate on something? And he went on and on and on. I thought any kid listening,
actually,
any kid watching right now would have switched off and would have been playing with the Scalextrics at this point.
Yeah. I mean,
which was a shame. Because I mean, they could have used him so much better.
Yeah. It was nice to see him, but I did flick through it as well. But he was big with kids at the time because he's just done Will o' the Wisp. He was making that cartoon series, so he's really recognisable voice. And he was on Jack and Nori all the time. So he was known for just telling stories. So I guess that's another one that was... but yeah, better story, please, Ken.
Yeah, come on, Ken.
I haven't got anything. I just got some of the references, some of the names, like the Street of a Thousand Chopsticks, a reference to the Chinese police as Chinese takeaway, which did make me chuckle at the word pun. The Emperor Chop Suey, obviously, it's just littered with it, isn't it? It's just littered with inappropriate and jarring and wince-inducing language, but at the same time is a fantastically surreal, bonkers piece of telly.
It is. It's a real great snapshot into that era, of the attitudes of that era, of the, I suppose you could say, innocence of that era.
Maybe not innocence, maybe naivety, because there wasn't
naivety. That's the better word.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Thinking back to as an 11-year-old. I already had a set of, 10 when this came out. I already had a set of cultural assumptions in my head that meant watching this.
Yeah.
This was just how it was. This is how foreign people were. And this were, as you said earlier, the mystical lands of such and such just conflated into one place that was speech marks, foreign,
It's when you look at things like this that you kind of realise how you were culturally conditioned.
Absolutely.
This is the way things are. Whereas it's only kind of as you age, you kind of start to question that belief system that you were conditioned to be in, Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I'm really pleased that you suggested it, actually, because...
Yeah, I'm pleased.
It was a lovely mix of nostalgia, but also, a snapshot into how we, as the public, behaved and what we were fed.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I came across it and just was like, oh my God, this has to go in our festive period.
I'm going to see a panto.
Are you? Which one?
Well, darling, I'm going to the Palladium, obviously.
Are you? Which one are you going to see?
My wonderful friends Marie and Nick have bought me and my hubby a ticket. So we're going to watch Robin Hood, and it stars, get this.
Who is it?
So lovely Julian Clary.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Nigel Havers.
Yes, I knew he was in it as well. Actually,
and I sat down. Are you ready for this? Jane McDonald.
No.
BAFTA winning Jane McDonald. I hasten to add before you say anything. She's just...
I love a bit of Jane.
Wonderful human being.
Yeah, I love a bit of Jane.
Love a bit of Jane.
Yeah. When is it? When are you going?
She's like... on the 18th. Right. She's like the Scylla for the modern age, really, isn't she, Jane McDonald?
I'm not having that. There's only be one Scylla. There's only ever one chinchilla. Don't try it, love. She had number 1 in America, has she? Has she shite?
She's won a BAFTA. I knew that would wind you up. Yeah, that's why I said it. Really, I just think they're like 2 peas in a pod, really. Jane McDonald and Scylla,
I tell you what, how to ruin a mood, don't you? So that was the Panto put to bed. And what are we going to be looking at next episode, Dave?
Well, we're going to be looking at a Christmas movie because our Love Actually episode went down so well. And we loved it, didn't we?
I've had 3 people say now I've ruined that film for them, which I'm proud of. I can't lie.
I'm quite proud of it too, actually. It's about time people's bubbles were burst in regards to that misogynistic mess. But anyway, bar humbug and all that. What we're going to be looking at is a particular favourite of mine, but I know you've never seen it. So, gazers, if anyone loves The Holiday from 2006, then our next podcast will be right up your strasse. So, yeah, we're going to be looking at The Holiday, which is a movie starring Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jack Black and Jude Law. So make sure you get yourself a glass of sherry poured, have a little watch before we come back for our next podcast, because it is a great film and it'll be interesting to see what Dr. Lee Arnott has to say about it.
And our episode is actually coming out on Christmas Day, isn't it?
Yes, our next episode is going to go out on Christmas Day. So if you are having a little mini meltdown and you want to escape the relatives, then please do have a listen. Till then, please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Podcast Gaze and on TikTok at Problematic Gaze. Please don't forget to share the love of the Problematic Gaze with all your friends. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to email us, please email us at problematicgaze@gmail.com. What are you laughing at?
Nothing, just your professionalism.
Well, do try. I find the professionalism really ramps up a gear once I've had a glass of sherry.
You sure?
Yeah. Oh, let's just double check we have press record this time, because you know what we're like. Yeah, we are recording.
Jolly good. Right then, until then.
So enjoy your trip up north. Give my regards to the northeast of England, Lee.
Until then, I wish you a very good week.
Goodbye. I need another sherry.
He needs another sherry for sure.